Originally in Spanish. Considering things as a whole, connecting the dots. We have seen an expansion of all things Chinese all over the world for decades now. A preparation, engineered and manipulated from the level of the controllers. Fascist communist values taking over the entire Western world. The deterioration of the Western industrial machinery, centered in the USA also in favor of a total Chinese industrial hegemony. The deterioration of Western economic systems and the deterioration of the national, regional, cultural, and personal identity of all people in the West. I connect that with people in China not being allowed to see Western culture with heavy censorship in the media, as if protecting them from the contamination of what is imposed in the West, as in isolating the Chinese population from the influence of everything Western, except for the parts that the very controllers want to be filtered out. The protection of values such as self-thought, freedom of speech, and even transgender are suppressed in China. In short, the controllers, with a completely inhuman, anti-humanity tinge, favor China and its mass control systems in every way. It is obvious to see that the center of attention of the new humanity, post-reset, and the new world order will be in China. Added to this are significant details as connected dots, such as the emergence of large to huge cities in China, isolated and new, but empty of people, mostly to the north. I also connected with the fact that China removed the restriction on having children from only 1 per couple to 3 per couple. It also goes together with the fact that hospitals in China do not offer vasectomies, and soon the sale of condoms and contraceptive pills will also be forbidden without an official medical prescription and approved by the party. It is obvious what they want. They want many more Chinese. This points to an expansion of China in every way. Going back to the Ukraine conflict situation, yes, I see the possibility of a long and bloody war, like the Balkans, like the Russian invasion of Afghanistan in the 1980s, and like Vietnam for the US. Because that would make a lot of sense to the controllers, clearly not human because of their extremely cruel and unempathetic reactions. What they want is to wear down Russia and the West morally, economically, and militarily. And what better way for that than to have a war in the middle of a pandemic? Because it is now said that Poland is supplying arms to Ukraine, which angers Russia, this making the situation extremely volatile, where it only takes a simple false flag somewhere, much like the Gulf of Tonkin, Vietnam marking the beginning of the US intervention, August 2, 1964, to start a direct war confrontation between NATO and the Russian bloc. To establish the new world order, this would make total sense, because it would destroy the Western civilization they do not want, wiping out entire cities and cultures, as we have already seen they can do, and as they did with Tartaria. This points to a new reset, the calling, as they call it in English. Because militarily speaking, the strategy that I can see here clearly is the following: war between Russia and the West of attrition, never nuclear, because it can't be, and even if it could be, it would not be in their interest for their purposes, where they wear down Russia's military, industrial, and economic forces by confronting the West. That is to say, of the three power blocks in the world today, West, NATO, Russia, China, what the controllers want is to leave China in control and as the center of the new world order. So what has to be done is to confront Russia against the West, NATO, in a war of attrition that undermines its personnel capabilities and its military capabilities in every way, as well as the morale of its own people. Then you would have two weak blocs, Russia and NATO West, hurt and weak. And then China comes in as totally dominant, where either Russia and or Western NATO would have little or no ability to respond and would be quickly defeated by China's massive armed forces. Looking historically at World War II, the reason Germany lost the war was not because they lacked discipline or because their machines were bad. On the contrary, they were basically the best, with some problems, but the best overall. What caused Germany to lose the war was a combination of two main things: that they were fighting on many fronts at the same time, as Russia would be if it became a conflict against the West, and because the industrial machinery, the ability to produce machinery and war materiel of the US-based West was simply overwhelming. In other words, it was US industry that wiped out German industry by draining its resources to the point of collapse. Here I see the same thing: the decades-long systematic relocation of the world's industrial machinery to China, plus the deterioration of the national, cultural, and even personal identity of the people of the West. It is clear: confront Russia with the West until both are decimated, and then finish it off with China's military and industrial power, leaving China as the only industrial, military, and cultural influence on Earth. This is in addition to the principle that people who, for one or more generations, the more the better, have been under one political and reality system will not be able to see or understand even the possibility of how to live in another way. That is to say, to do away with Western thinking of freedom, of individuality, is easy if the Chinese population expands, and with it, their way of thinking, as they have been conditioned and trained to be submissive and obedient. I see sense in all of this, connecting the dots. If you have two enemies, you don't fight them directly against each other. First you make them fight each other, and then you annihilate the victor, since it is weak. I don't think Putin and his strategists did not foresee what I clearly see, that they could not win quickly, given that it involves breaking a large country with external support, and in urban settings where massive weapons cannot be used, but you have to go door to door while exposing yourself to snipers and small defensive weapons, just for starters, which would point to a long and draining war. I could be wrong, but I don't think so, not with current data. Another important thing is that the public should keep in mind that during a war, both sides will act by disseminating disinformation and propaganda on a large scale. So what you see on TV, news, and YouTube channels, online or otherwise, will never reflect the reality of what is happening on the ground. No official media from either side will tell the truth, but only propaganda, both sides claiming they are winning. And if it comes from the West, it is even less credible. A war is won with disinformation.